The views and opinions expressed by the participants in this program are those of the individuals involved who do not necessarily represent the views of Gray Media Inc., KTVF, my mother, or the Commissioner of Baseball.
This is a La, test 1, 2, 3. All right, I believe we're ready to start. Show number 30. What anniversary is that? I meant to look that up, and I have no idea. I hope it's the Devil's Food Cake anniversary. That would be great to have after doing this program here on Memorial Day, of course, which is very significant, obviously. Glad to be with you. This is Interior Insights. I'm J.R. Lewis, and we are brought to you by the Gas and Diesel Doctor, offering full automotive machine shop services, which means all of their automotive repairs are performed in-house, and that allows them to restore your vehicle faster. And if you enjoy this show, please take a moment to contact the Gas and Diesel Doctor and let them know that you support them supporting us. Website for all of our stations and this program is webcenterfairbanks.com. Lots of news and calendar events and community information on there. All of our different contests and things like May No Child Go Hungry, which we'll talk about in just a sec. You can also see those things on our app. Alaska's news source, Fairbanks. It's not that hard. You doofus. You can use that app on big or small screens. Email me at jrlewis@ktvf11.com for show ideas, guest ideas, feedback on any shows we've done. You want to see more of something, less of something, any of that kind of thing. And this week, we are going to conclude National Hearing Month with a more in-depth visit with Dr. Alexandria Jackson. You might remember her, the local audiologist that we visited with during our first business spotlight. She's going to explain how these hearing issues don't just affect it goes well beyond that into your balance and your mental health, and it can impact your cognitive decline or prevent it to some extent. Sort of weaves its tendrils into a variety of different aspects of health. So that's this week. Next week, a very special conversation with Joyce Carpenter, who represents the Relay for Life event, which focuses on lives touched by cancer. That event will be coming up soon, and I think it's one of the most powerful conversations we've had to date. So I hope that you'll plan to catch that. Now, Star Spangled Sing-Off. You're beginning to run out of time to participate in this, and if you have no idea what it is, well...
Think you have the voice to make history? Join KTVF, KXDF, and KFXF as we celebrate the spirit of America with a Star Spangled Sing-Off. This is your chance to win an all-expenses-paid trip to Nashville, where you'll film a performance that will air nationwide. Enter by uploading your a cappella anthem video at webcenterfairbanks.com/contest by Sunday, May 31st. Must be 18 and live within the KTVF, KXDF, and KFXF viewing area. The Star Spangled Sing-Off, your stage awaits.
Again, webcenterfairbanks.com for all the details on that. We're looking forward to seeing what you turn in. And another big deal right now is May No Child Go Hungry, our annual KTVF, KXDF, and KFXF event benefiting the Fairbanks Community Food Bank. It's a month-long food and virtual cash donation drive that supports children served by the food bank. 40% of those helped by the food bank are children, and this need increases over the summer when school's out. So you can see the website or that flyer there on your screen for the many drop-off locations. And special thanks to our presenting sponsor this year, the Santa Claus House. Turning to the calendar. Let's highlight the NAMI Family Support Group, which is presented by NAMI Fairbanks. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And they have one of their groups coming up on the 28th this week. They are located at 3504 Industrial Avenue, Suite 102, and got a phone number of 456-4704. The time for this gathering is 6 to 7:30. The price is free. And if you or someone you love lives with a mental health condition, you're not alone, and you don't have to figure it out on your own. NAMI Family Support Group is a safe, judgment-free space for family members, partners, and friends of individuals living with a mental health condition. Led by NAMI-trained facilitators with lived experience, this free support group offers connection, compassion, and practical tools to help you navigate that tough journey. You'll learn to better understand mental health conditions, gain insight and encouragement from others who have been there, discover ways to advocate and care for your loved one while also caring for yourself. And it's free and confidential. You don't have to register or anything like that. So for more information, you can get in touch with them. And I think these meetings are weekly, and the next one is coming up the 28th. Now, on our other page, the weekly artist pop-ups in Esther. Those are presented by the workshop, and you can see the open hours of it. Price is free on this as well. It's a weekly pop-up in downtown Esther that highlights Alaskan artists and craftspeople. Open to the public every Friday to Sunday during the summer season, the workshop offers a place where artists demonstrate their craft and showcase their work, and anyone can come and enjoy and support the vibrant Fairbanks arts community. They say it's in the old hot dog building next to the Malamute Saloon, 3660 Main Street in Esther. And to see the full calendar of artists, visit the Workshop Esther. I can't. What's all smushed into one word? theworkshopesther.com, theworkshopesther.com, or follow the Workshop Esther Alaska on Facebook and Instagram. Or if you want to use the telephone, 907-451-0691. All right, now to the feature. You may remember Dr. Alexandria Jackson sat in with us recently to record our first ever business spotlight. And I wanted to get more information on some of what she discussed outside of just her practice, which is Fairbanks Hearing and Balance Center, and learn more about how our ears work, how hearing loss occurs, and most interesting, how hearing loss can impact more than just hearing. It can mess up your balance, it can add to cognitive decline, it can undermine mental health. So with no further ado, since I just did the adieu, gazoon tight, Dr. Alexandria Jackson on II-30. Okay, Dr. Jackson, very nice to have you back.
Yeah.
We did a business spotlight, you tried to say the word properly, with you a little while back and learned some, but we didn't, in that constrained time frame, I didn't really have the chance to get to know you. So what is your background in Alaska?
Yeah, so I moved here 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
My family, I'm married. We have 3 daughters. We sold everything, packed it up, and moved to Fairbanks so that I could work in Fairbanks as an audiologist.
Why Fairbanks? What attracted you to coming up here?
So I played soccer at the University of Arkansas for my undergraduate degree, and there were 2 girls that were from Anchorage on my soccer team.
Yeah.
I was able to visit one of them when I was in college, and when I did, I just knew that one day I wanted to live in Alaska.
Yeah.
And so an opportunity popped up, and the stars started to align, and I told my husband that, the girls and I were moving to Fairbanks and he could come if he wanted.
There you go.
We're all here and we're super happy. I love the community, so really blessed.
And I'm glad you didn't end up in Anchorage, because that's not really Alaska anyway.
Yeah. We feel the same way.
Yeah. Okay, so we're coming at the time this show comes out, we've been making our way through National Hearing Month, which of course is a good time to focus on this. And could we maybe start by having you give us an overview of how hearing works? What are all the pieces and parts that make us, be exposed to a sound and translate it into something that we processes, whatever that sound is?
Yeah. The auditory system is really fascinating. I mean, sound comes, through the ear canal, and then it makes the eardrum move. When the eardrum moves, there's 3 super tiny middle ear bones that help conduct sound through. It makes its way to the inner ear, which has the cochlea. There are little hairs inside the cochlea that help conduct sound through. And once it leaves the cochlea, it reaches the auditory nerve. The auditory nerve specifically is where we are able to understand what the speech is telling us. And then from the auditory nerve, it makes its way to the brain.
Okay. So in the case of, and preface this question by, obviously there are a lot of different types of hearing loss and circumstances, whether they're genetic but like sort of in the typical case where a person's beginning to experience hearing loss, what is happening? Where is the breakdown in that system usually?
Yeah, so whenever someone is diagnosed with traditional hearing loss, I like to say presbycusis, that's age-related hearing loss. Essentially, the hair cells in the cochlea just get fragile and break. And so that causes the need for sound to be elevated so that those hair cells can conduct sound and make it towards the auditory nerve. The trick is that if the hair cells in the cochlea are dying and you don't compensate for that with hearing aids, then you're not stimulating that nerve that connects to the ear to the brain. And hearing is very much, if you don't use it, you lose it. So if you're not stimulating the nerve that connects the ear to the brain with hearing aids, over time that nerve will atrophy. And then even with hearing aids, it can make it difficult to understand speech and conversation.
You know, I've heard about that. And that's as a lay person, that's a difficult thing to wrap my head around. Because when my father-in-law was getting his, my wife would talk to him, and because he'd been clearly having trouble participating in conversations for a while, and she talked about how the essentially that if hearing loss goes on too long, you sort of forget how to hear, you forget how to process language. Now in my head, I'm like, well, I've been speaking for a long time. How would I forget how to process language? So how does that help me to understand that?
I kind of like to think of it when we're talking about understanding, as I said, it's about the nerve. And so when you go with untreated hearing loss for a long period of time, that nerve isn't being stimulated, and so it atrophies. And I always describe it to my patient as if, it's kind of like a blown speaker. If you turn the volume up, that's not going to make the speaker work more clearly. And so it's just essentially that the tool that you need in order to understand has become dull. It's not as sharp as it was. And so you can hear people, but you have a lot of trouble understanding what they're saying because essentially you're hearing just distorted sound.
So trying to like listen to music through a blown speaker, that same sort of thing. That's interesting. Now, speaking of speakers, you were talking about the typical hearing loss as these little hairs age and break, but there's a role that noise exposure plays in there too. It could be power tools or snow machines or firearms, headphones. What does that do? How does that damage your ability to hear?
Yeah, I always tell my patients it's usually a combination of 3 things. So age, and then life experiences is another one. So a lot of times people kind of think about the last 10 years, but it's truly noise exposure throughout the entire lifespan. And essentially, when sounds are too loud, it breaks the hair cells faster. Our cochlea is in a shape to where the hair cells that are damaged first due to noise are for the higher pitches. And the higher pitches are important because that is where most of the consonant sounds of speech are. And so a lot of times, the higher frequencies where women's and children's voices are in men or women who have worked as heavy equipment operators operators and perhaps weren't really aware of appropriate hearing protection, the hair cells in that area will just be extremely damaged and just unable to conduct sound.
Is hearing loss always gradual, or are there cases where it can be very sudden?
Yes, and I love to bring awareness to sudden sensory neural hearing loss. To be honest, we're not quite sure what exactly happens. We suspect that a virus attacks the inner ear, but essentially someone could be driving down the road, they could just wake up in the morning, and hearing in one ear is just suddenly gone. And what's so important about this is that you have a 2-week window to essentially see an audiologist, get your hearing tested, and follow up with an ear, nose, and throat physician. Because sometimes when someone has sudden sensory neural hearing loss, if they're within the 2-week window, an ENT physician can inject steroids transtympanically. So yes, you're getting an injection in your eardrum of steroids, but on some occasions, it can bring their hearing back.
Really? So it's not necessarily a permanent thing like you...
Not necessarily. I've seen instances where people's hearing has recovered completely back to where it was. I've seen where, it slightly improved, but not completely. I've seen where it didn't make an impact at all.
It's always going to depend.
But that's why it's so important to kind of have a baseline hearing test in case something like this happens. Then we'll kind of know, what are we looking to get back? Where were you before this instance? But super important, if you know anyone or if you yourself, a sudden hearing loss is an emergency, and you should see someone immediately.
Okay. Now, we know that there are certain ways to make a living or spend your time. I'm thinking of, like you said, heavy equipment operators, maybe soldiers who have to be around firearms a lot, although I'm sure they've learned a lot about how to protect their hearing. But, there are the obvious things. Are there some early life or job occupational risks that can cause hearing loss, but they aren't maybe as obvious that you can think of?
I would say, with headphones and specifically video gaming. I'm seeing a lot of teenagers coming in that are starting to show signs of noise-induced hearing loss because when they're video gaming, the volume is just up way too loud on their headsets. Another occupation that I never thought about until I learned in school was, for example, hairdressers. So actually the volume of the hair dryers and blow dryers, they're more likely to get hearing loss due to noise exposure.
Interesting.
Another interesting one, I think, is a dentist. So even though you might not necessarily think their tools are that loud, the pitch of them and the loudness level of them is loud, and they're hearing it for a long period of time throughout the day. And so they themselves are also at risk for noise-induced hearing loss.
Interesting. Yeah. Are there, for somebody in a situation like that has to be able to hear when they're talking to people, because, a dentist is going to get questions.
Right.
Even they all sound kind of like that. But is there something that can give you like partial protection and still enable you to, there is. All right. So what is that? What would that be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there is a type of filtered hearing protection. So essentially a mold is taken of your ear, and so this hearing protection is made specifically for you, and then based on your occupation we choose a filter amount, and so that allows you to protect your hearing from the loud noise that you're exposed to, but at the same time the filter allows it to where you can hear and communicate with your patients or your coworkers, because that's important as well. You don't don't need to be completely occluded. Even for someone who is a heavy equipment operator, works in construction, it's a dangerous environment and you need to still be able to communicate with your coworkers.
Okay. And then one other thing before we started getting into what happens in hearing tests and why people should get them and so forth. I think it was in our segment we did a while back. You mentioned something about balance and how having issues with dizziness or vertigo can be related to hearing. How does that all fit in?
Yeah, so whenever you're seeing a physician or an audiologist for balance, the first step is a hearing test, because we can rule either in or out certain types of balance issues just by looking at the hearing test. Balance is tricky. A lot of times, we diagnose a specific type of balance issue throughout a process of elimination, and an audiologist and an ear, nose, and throat physician are just one portion of that. The most common type of vertigo or dizziness I think that people suffer from is called BPPV.
Oh.
But essentially, there are 3 semicircular canals in our inner ear, and each of those canals have crystals in them. And sometimes, for whatever reason, again, we're not really sure why, those crystals will get lodged into the wrong canal, and it can just make it seem like you're on a merry-go-round.
Yeah.
But there are different physical therapy exercises and maneuvers that can be done to help lodge those crystals back into the correct canal, and we're able to help diagnose that.
Yeah. That's interesting. How about all of these things you don't think about when you're not an expert. That's why I wanted to have you come in here. Forgetting how to understand speech and dizziness being an ear thing. You just think of that as being your brain going on pause. So, all right, at what point should someone get a hearing test? When do you start having them?
Yeah, as I was mentioning about sudden hearing loss, I think it's great for everyone to have a baseline hearing test. If you are exposed to noise occupationally, you should get a comprehensive evaluation done annually if you have a family history of hearing loss. And when it comes to age, we really start recommending annual hearing tests for everyone once they're 60.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes it can be hard to get the courage to see what your hearing is, or maybe you have a spouse that you would really like to have their hearing tested. And so I have a few tricks that I recommend.
Okay.
One is, you just tell your spouse, it could just be wax. All this could be is wax. So, you get them into the office and we make sure there's not wax, and we do the hearing test that way. And then another recommendation that I have is to make it a date. So, you and your spouse both come get your hearing tested, and that way y'all can be aware of, if you have hearing loss and where that hearing loss is. And then after, you can go for lunch.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be scary and negative. It can be a fun experience where you get to learn a little bit about yourself or your spouse, and then you can just go have a great lunch after.
What do you think causes the resistance on the part of people to, I'm sure oncologists go, have this all the time. They feel a lump or something and well, I don't want to have that go check because I don't, it's just sort of this, what I know won't scare me sort of thing. Why would there be a resistance to knowing if you have hearing loss, and if you do, to having hearing aids, especially as little and invisible? I've got them and you can't even see them. So where's that come from, do you think?
I think it's really generational. So I think generations have different opinions and feelings about hearing. I think one of the biggest myths is that if you have hearing loss, that means you're old. But, as I've said before, and as I'll always say, that hearing loss doesn't discriminate based on someone's age. And, hearing loss can start at birth and can occur throughout any time throughout the lifespan. And I really just think that, hearing loss does not equal you're old. And I think that is just the main thing. I mean, at one point, it was a big deal, I know, if you wore glasses. And now, as generations are ongoing, a lot of people wear glasses just as an accessory, or they don't really need it. It's just fashion. And I think with the advancement in technology, everyone has something in their ear. It might be an AirPod, it might be a hearing aid. And so I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. And, just because you get your hearing tested or you have hearing loss, that doesn't mean that you're old.
Right. Well, and it's interesting, too, because I just remembered that in addition to the balance part and the potential for sort of losing the ability to hear, even if you have correction, if you let it go for too long, that blown-out speaker analogy, isn't there also some more science correlating hearing loss with forms of cognitive decline in aging? How does that interface?
So it's just about, as the hearing or the auditory stimulus is traveling throughout that cycle, it goes from the nerve to the brain. And so if you're not stimulating your auditory system, then stimulation isn't going to the brain. And over time, the brain shrinks and it atrophies. And hearing loss is really one of the largest modifiable risk factors that you can make to prevent cognitive decline. So not only are there parts of your brain that aren't being stimulated because of untreated hearing loss, but you're also not getting the stimulation of interacting with other people, because a lot of people tend to start isolating themselves, which can lead to depression. And so, just like everything in the body works together, our brain is stimulated in so many ways, and it's not just about hearing. It's about interaction and other stimuli that hearing can contribute to.
Yeah, and I was wondering about that. That hearing loss has also been tied to mental health issues, like you said, to social isolation.
Yep.
Even among people who were very social before will tend to withdraw because they're embarrassed maybe about not being able to hear. Would that be part of it? Or
it's just difficult for them to hear and understand. And so they start to think, well, why be part of the conversation if I'm not going to be able to contribute to it?
And on the other hand, is there science to suggest that good hearing health has the potential to lead to a better aging process for a person?
Yes, so it significantly improves quality of life, and it can help people stay active in part of their community, and it keeps the brain stimulated. I know one of the first things when cognitive issues start to rise, physicians will say, have you had their hearing tested? Because it's important that the brain is being stimulated as much as it can in any way that it needs it.
Okay. And here's another one that I forgot to kind of mention earlier, things that might want to push you over that, being nervous about going in versus actually doing it. Because what got me into my first audiologist was I was noticing. Do you like tinnitus or tinnitus?
I'm a tinnitus girl.
Okay, I'm a tinnitus one, so we'll just agree to disagree. But, so they're ringing.
Yeah.
The persistent ringing, not after hearing a loud sound, any of that is just always there and so annoying.
Yeah.
So that was what my doc said, was go see an audiologist.
Yep.
It is that, now there's no guarantee, obviously, of a cure, but
Right.
I have definitely noticed having hearing aids has brought that under control. So again, what's the relationship there?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to hit this one.
Oh.
So tinnitus or tinnitus, it is most often a symptom of hearing loss.
Is it?
It is. A lot of people think it's causing their hearing loss, but it's actually occurring because they have untreated hearing loss. So it's all about back to brain stimulation. When you have hearing loss, those areas of your brain aren't being stimulated, and so healthier parts of the brain work really, really hard to keep those areas stimulated, and throughout that process, it creates that phantom ringing sound that only the person can hear. And I will say that a lot of my patients, once they start stimulating their hearing loss with hearing aids, they will immediately notice that the loudness level of their tinnitus has just dissipated with amplification.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, they'll report that, yes, when I have my hearing aids in, the tinnitus is not bothersome, but we don't sleep in hearing aids.
Right.
And so a lot of times they'll take their hearing aids out and they'll say, Dr. Jackson, it's great when I have my hearing aids in, but then when it's time to go to bed, my tinnitus is just so loud. And so there are a few management strategies that you can do for that. Essentially, when someone has tinnitus, we always want them to be in a more sound-enriched environment. So essentially, silence can be your enemy.
Right.
And so, you pick a more peaceful sound that you like, which the options are unlimited.
So you're talking like surf, white noise,
Yeah.
birds, water,
Yeah,
anything like that?
my husband has tinnitus, and at night, we're from the south. We didn't realize that there weren't really thunderstorms here. And so we have an Alexa in our room, and we'll just tell her to play thunderstorm sounds.
Yeah.
And that is a great management strategy for him. It helps him fall asleep peacefully. And sometimes that it can get to the point where the severity of the impact tinnitus has on someone's quality of life just gets to a breaking point. And so there are a lot of cognitive behavioral programs that you can do that will help you and teach you exercises and strategies, essentially retraining your brain to focus less on that sound that it's producing.
Okay. Well, let's go back to now. We were kind of talking about when a person should start. So you go in, maybe you have your kids do it. I don't know if you start that early or whatever, but at whatever point you establish this baseline and you find things are all right, don't have any hearing loss, don't need hearing aids, but I want to protect what I have. So first off, in terms of not letting loud sound create further deterioration, kind of how loud is too loud for, and I'm sure you've got some examples of that.
Yeah, so when we're talking about specific decibel levels, 85 dB, if you're going to hear that for 8 hours plus, it's going to create damage. So 85, that can be a lawnmower. So it can be an air blower, things like that, heavy equipment. And so anytime you're going to be exposed to loud sound for a prolonged period of time, you definitely need to have hearing protection. I think it's just a good habit that even if, you're going to be mowing your lawn and it only takes an hour, you can never be too safe. And it's really important that if you know a sound is loud, that you protect your hearing. And on any smartphone, you can download free loudness meter levels,
right.
And it will tell you pretty accurately how loud a sound is, so that you're more aware of when you should be protecting your hearing.
Yeah, I got one of those. I went to a broadcast convention recently, and
cool.
as you might imagine, when a few hundred broadcasters are together and it's cocktail time before the awards show, it's going to be loud.
Yeah.
So I got out my because it was just like off the charts. I couldn't believe how loud everybody was, and found out that a room full of broadcasters having conversation over cocktails is right up near jet engine.
Oh, wow.
So it was in that ballpark.
Yeah, that's loud.
Yes, I have. I've seen those apps,
Yeah.
and you're right. They're good, and they have a lot of different uses. You can use them to balance out the instruments in a band, or it's neat tech that's available. Are people, do you think, getting the message about using hearing protection? Do you feel like it's gotten better in recent years, or is there still sort of a stigma against it? I don't need that, I'll be fine.
Yeah, I think definitely in recent years, because of all the research that has come out showing how, untreated hearing loss can lead to cognitive decline, that people are just protecting their hearing more seriously. Audiologists, their profession, my profession, it hasn't been around as long as physicians. So, physicians and dentists, they were around like during the buggy days.
Yeah.
But audiologists who specialize in hearing, our profession didn't come around until after World War II.
Really?
When everyone came back from the war and no one can hear. And so, we've come a long way in this shorter period of time. But I think with the advancement in technology that has led to advancement in research, people are starting to become more aware of the research that shows how important hearing health is and how important it is to protect it.
Yeah, well, and as you said, all of these different ways that it impacts other aspects of your life or your aging process that you might not think of if you didn't know any better. And speaking of the technology now, I remember when I was in, I guess it was elementary school, might have gone later through public school, that once every year, every few years, we'd go to the nurse's office and we'd do, the hand up. Here it is, here it is. I assume that with the advancements in computers and tiny little cameras and things, that there's more you can do with a hearing test. And I know you can't speak to what everybody does, but let's say in your office, what does a hearing test involve? What are all the things you're looking at?
Yeah, well, first, definitely looking to make sure there's no debris in the ear, so we can get an accurate hearing test. We also do tympanometry, which is just a test to make sure that the eardrums are moving the way they're supposed to. For children, one of the most common things is ear infections or fluid behind the eardrum, and that test is really important in helping us diagnose that that's the cause for their hearing loss. We can test the outer hair cells and see how healthy they are. Definitely still going to be a part in the test where, you're saying yes to the beeps or pressing a button. Because it is important to determine someone's thresholds. But in addition to that, word recognition. So once your thresholds are established, or, the softest level that you can hear the beep, we do a calculation. And so we present words to compensate for the amount of hearing loss someone has, so that we can see, with volume, how well is a person able to understand? Because that's going to set realistic expectations for how, the treatment will work. If they have this hearing loss and we turn the volume up and they still don't understand well, then someone can't expect to hear 100% of the conversation with hearing aids. And then a final test that we do in my office is a speech and noise test, because I feel like the number one complaint when someone has hearing loss is, when I'm in a difficult listening environment, I just can't hear.
Like a restaurant or something with lots of background noise.
Parties, auditoriums. And so we present a woman's voice. She says sentences, and in the background there are a lot of other people talking, and we have the patient repeat back as much of the sentence that the woman says. But this test essentially tells us how well someone is able to process speech in a difficult listening environment. Because sometimes people can hear beeps normally, but when they get into a difficult listening environment, their ability to sift through competing noise and understand kind of falls apart.
Interesting.
And so those are just some of the tests that really give us a comprehensive view, so that we can individually help someone in the area that their hearing loss specifically is.
Yeah. Has gotten fancier.
Yeah.
I kind of figured. So when you get to the point that maybe you do need some help, some hearing aids, or maybe there are other things, but it seems like this technology has come quite a ways too. I mean, I think I asked before when we were doing the show about your office, that feature that a hearing aid used to take up, it like went around the whole inside of the ear, and there was the big old brown thing, that came around the back. And I mean, the ones I have, you can't even see. And so, but mainly the hearing aid has gone beyond just being something that boosts up sound. There's a lot more going on in there. How has it changed over the years?
Yeah, essentially hearing aids now are just little tiny computers that are constantly analyzing your environment. And more recently, they have been able to implement artificial intelligence inside the hearing aids. So these computer chips have just been trained on billions of sentences, and they're just so smart that they're able to pick out what you would want to hear and make competing noise more comfortable. Hearing aids have microphones. That's how sound is picked up. And these microphones are analyzing your environment with the computer chip, and it can literally zone in to a specific area that you're trying to hear, and kind of eliminate, not completely eliminate, but more focus on what you want to hear, compared to some noise around you that might not be as important. But it's really amazing what artificial intelligence has done for hearing aids just within the last 2 years. And at the rate that technology is advancing, I'm really excited for the future and how hearing aids can continue to improve over the next few years.
I have seen in some of the software that I use even to produce this program or in the radio work that I still do, a version of that neural analysis or AI-based noise manipulation. For example, you can, with one of the pieces of software that I have, you can put a song in, and if you just want to extract the vocals and get rid of everything else and make it so, the person in this song you've heard on the radio or downloaded nowadays, so you could hear it as if they were singing it without the band. You can actually do that. Or you can remove the vocals and make an instrumental version. And the AI has added a level of sophistication to that just I'm still at the right age that just completely blows me away. So I think about that in what you're talking about with the hearing aids. So they can do that then. They can analyze what's background noise, what's speech, what and do I need a little more help maybe to hear a woman compared to a man because the higher frequencies tend to go first. So they're doing that. It's thinking and sifting.
Yeah, it's thinking and sifting. And it you wouldn't want it to completely eliminate everything around you because maybe you're outside and you're communicating with someone on the sidewalk. You need to hear if a car is coming by or, if a kid is riding their bike. So you don't want to really eliminate all other sound. But boy, does it do an excellent job on focusing on what it knows and what it's been trained on that you want to hear. And it's really incredible.
Yeah. Well, and of course, my very favorite thing, and this will not surprise anybody coming from me, I love that I can play music through them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, then not every model does that, but the ability to get audio, again, from the standpoint of maybe helping you to hear your phone calls and stuff better.
Right.
That it just goes right in there. There's technology, too, that you could plug into your television, right? And it'll beam the...
Yeah.
But just for me, just being able to play music while if Home Depot, if you ever hire me as a stocker and you have a no headphone rule, I'll be like, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm still going to have it on in my headphone or my hearing aids.
Yeah.
So that's lots of different features like that.
Yeah, and I will say sometimes maybe some older generations get a little bit weary when it comes to connecting their smartphone to their hearing aids, but it can significantly improve your ability to hear and understand the phone conversation, because not only are you hearing it through your prescription of your hearing aid, but you're hearing it in both ears.
Yeah.
And so it just makes phone conversation so much more enjoyable. And, used to, like, your phone still had to be your speaker. But recently, within the last few years, the microphones on the hearing aids actually can pick up your voice and transmit it. So it's truly a hands-free experience that you can have when you're on the phone.
Yeah, I've got a little button on mine where it'll pick up the phone, too.
Yeah.
So if I hear the ring, I just go, boop, I never even have to touch it.
Yeah.
To stay. Or like when I'm on the riverboat and I get a call, you push and hold, it'll disconnect it and send it to voicemail, because I can't do that right now. We've touched on the challenge this sometimes presents for older adults because of stigma, or that audiology being something relatively new. How would somebody who's taking care of an older adult, whether it's a parent or whatever, encourage them to not be resistant to coming in?
Yeah, I think, having just a conversation with them about, if they think that they have hearing loss, and if they've noticed that they're having hearing loss, and just about how they're feeling about having hearing loss, and offering to go to that appointment with them is so important. I mean, any doctor's appointment, if you go by yourself and you don't write anything down, even myself, I leave and I'm like, wow, what did they even say? So having someone to support you through that process, and helping you go through those emotions is really important. And then I think, if they're worried about hearing aids, if you look at someone, I look at you right now, I literally do not see your hearing aids.
Yeah.
But, you can kind of be on the prowl and looking for hearing aids and kind of saying, oh, look at that person right there. And, just saying, like, you didn't even notice that they had them.
Yeah.
And so
an opportunity to compliment and support.
Yeah, and support is key.
Yeah.
I was even watching a news segment one day, and it was asking people what did they think was the most important thing to help people live longer, and everyone said exercise and being active, but in reality it was having a really good support system to help you through the later years in life, and that couldn't be more true for the entire hearing process.
Yeah, but imagine how much, like we said before, how much harder that is to do if you can't hear anybody.
Right.
You're just going to feel more isolated and bummed out. Is there anything about living in Alaska specifically that our residents might want to keep in mind compared to other parts of the world? Again, just speaking as a layperson, I wonder about the cold or the dryness or the extremes of temperatures. Is there anything like that you're aware of that Alaskans especially should know about?
Oh, I just think our activities here are a little bit louder compared to some places. A lot of, ATV, boating, shooting. So just understanding that compared to someone who might live in the city, we, our activities can be louder. And then just the safety aspect of hearing your best. You know, if you're out going on hikes, even walking in the neighborhood, you know, there are animals that can be dangerous
yes.
here.
That's right.
And it's important that you're able to hear them. And so the safety aspect of hearing your best, I think, is extremely important given the area that we live.
Yeah. All right. Well, and of course, experts like yourself are able to field questions like that, as you're doing quite wonderfully, I might add.
Thank you.
If there was one thing, you know, say you could write it on a 3x5 card and stick it on everybody's mirror about their hearing, that you really want them to know, is it possible to think of something in that context, just that what you really wish everybody knew about hearing and hearing loss?
I think just that hearing loss is one of the largest modifiable risk factors in preventing cognitive decline, and so hearing health is brain health.
Really? So it's
And-
going to, as you progress, if your hearing if you keep up with it, it's going to increase the quality of your life.
Yeah, if you're not hearing well, then you're not keeping your brain well, and
Yeah.
those two things are very much connected. And if you can't treat one without treating the other, so.
Well, Dr. Jackson, I appreciate your time very, very much. I'm glad that you could come in. I want to thank you again for the little feature we aired, our very first business
Yeah,
spotlight.
of course.
I guess it would have been 2-3 weeks ago at this point. And you have made National Hearing Month special for us. I hope we'll get to see you again.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm a huge fan, and it was an honor to be here. So,
All right, then everybody wins.
yeah.
Very nice. An opportunity to learn a lot on our 30th edition of Interior Insights. Dr. Alexandria Jackson, as I said, she was our first business spotlight with Fairbanks Hearing and Balance Center. And by the way, the Business Spotlight is a service that we're glad to offer anyone who's interested. All you have to do is call 458-1800, or you can stop by or visit the website to get contact information. And we'd be more than happy to sit down with you for a while, learn all about your business. That works a little differently than our regular shows, but the crew can give you all the details. Fab Photo is something that we enjoy doing very much on this program because you take very nice pictures. Rhonda Boswell took a very nice picture, and it's called A Double Blessing. Certainly looks like it. And if you can't see it, well, the Descriptionator does.
This is French.
This photo shows a double rainbow stretching across a cloudy sky over a quiet rural scene. In the foreground, there's a gravel driveway, a rustic log cabin or shed with green trim, and a line of trees framing the landscape.
You know, interestingly, in this case, I could have just used Rhonda's description she turned in with a photo. Taken actually last July at Groudon Memorial Park, features not only a full rainbow, but a double one as well. Might be 2 pots of gold at the end. End quote. Of course, the fact that there's 2 of them doesn't mean anybody wants to share. I mean, why would you want to... And now, like a cruise ship plowing into your backyard koi pond,
It's time for the thing of the day, 'cause every day has things.
always trying to think of new ways to describe the impact of what we do. Geek Pride Day, ladies and gentlemen. Some people are old enough to remember when being called a geek was derogatory and meant that you were probably pale, non-athletic, wore thick glasses, had pretty much no friends, and were only good at activities that could be done indoors, on a chair, in your underwear. Thankfully, the word geek has evolved greatly over the years, and now usually just means a person who is fascinated with a certain complicated subject, whether it's math or video games, literature, science fiction films, or one of many others. and that person knows almost everything there is to know about it. This actually sounds pretty cool now, so why not celebrate all the geeks in this world on Geek Pride Day? Or if you're a big fan of assonance, there's always Big Cheek Pekin Geek on a Creek Day, which is nothing. It's not, that's not a thing. Of course, you know what is a thing is Memorial Day, and I'd like to continue a tradition here that we always did on the Fairbanks Morning News when this day would come around. And remember that Memorial Day will bring barbecues and road trips and a chance to maybe enjoy a day off if you got one of those. And there's nothing wrong with gathering or laughing or even chasing a good sale. But in the middle of all of that, we need to pause, because this day isn't just about the start of summer. It's about the cost of the freedom that we're enjoying. It's about the men and women who never made it home, whose lives were given in service to something bigger than themselves. So as we celebrate, let's remember, not just in passing, but with gratitude, with respect, and with the understanding that every ordinary moment we enjoy was made possible, to paraphrase Lincoln, by those who laid the most costly sacrifice upon the altar of freedom. So glad you could join us today for our 30th edition of Interior Insights on this Memorial Day. Our web address is webcenterfairbanks.com. The app for big and small screens is Alaska's News Source Fairbanks, and if you ever want to reach out to me, simply use jrlewis at ktvf11.com. A big thanks again to the Gas and Diesel Doctor. When engine rebuilds or repairs require parts to be sent out to machine shops for work, that can make the process take a lot longer. But they're able to take care of all of that locally because they know how important it is for you to get back on the road in a timely manner. If you're a fan of Interior Insights, by the way, consider taking a moment to let the Gas and Diesel Doctor know by just reaching out and telling them you're glad that this program is available. Next week, Joyce Carpenter will tell us about the upcoming Relay for Life, focused on those whose lives have been impacted by cancer. It's a very powerful conversation with some touching storytelling. So it's literally laughs and tears. Hope you'll be able to join us. Have a good day on Memorial Day, and we look forward to seeing you next week.